The first panelist is Professor Geertrui van Overwalle, who is the professor at the Center of Intellectual Property Rights at the University of Leuven, as well as a professor of patent law and new technologies at the University of Tilburg. Professor van Overwalle will make an intervention as well as moderate the Q&A session and discussion. And remember, for those of you following online, to please tweet at Syngenta Exchange and hashtag AccessIP. So thank you for joining me on stage. We will then hear via video conference comments from Dr. Javad Mozaffari, who's the chairperson of the governing body for the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. We also have the secretary of the International Treaty, Dr. Shakil Bhatti, who will provide remarks and participate in the Q&A session. Larry Horn is president and CEO of MPEG-LA, the world's leading independent packager of patent licenses. Luigi Guarino is a senior science coordinator at the Global Crop Diversity Trust. And finally, we have Felipe, excuse my pronunciation, Teixeira, head of the Technology Innovation Office at Embrapa in Brazil. So I will turn it over and ask the panel to join on stage and make their interventions, starting first with Geertrui. Thank you. You have your microphone.
We've heard about bacteria and their link with sausages. We've heard about glowing trees and synthetic viruses and the importance of synthetic yeast for beer. We've heard about high-tech plants needed, having better nutritional value and resistant to drought. We've heard about marker-assisted breeding. We've heard about innovation. There are mainly two innovation models being presented here. The one model is the model of what you could call single innovation. You have one item, one compound, and that one compound can lead to the development of a product which you can then commercialize. But even more, we've heard about the second type of innovation, which is cumulative and complex innovation, where you need a variety of elements and components to develop a product to then put on the market. I would say that especially in that second type of innovation, which is complex in nature, and where you need to assemble a lot of elements, open innovation might be relevant. Now, when you hear the term open innovation, quite often, as Shafali has been suggesting, quite often there is one flavor to it. The first flavor, which is linked to open innovation, is the path where there are no patents, no copyrights, where there's no IP. So quite often, open innovation is a synonym for no IP. But if you look into economic literature, the huge paradox you meet there is that open innovation very often is linked to the notion of IP. And it's often suggested that open innovation is possible thanks to IP. How does it work? I mean, open innovation, which is open as the term suggests, and then IP, which is kind of suggesting that you close up things. I think here, what I want to say feeds into what has been said by Shafali and Michael. Even within the proprietary path, open innovation is possible, but then you need a new mindset. Or as Shafali has said, a new mentality, a new culture. And there are various tools to establish open innovation with IP being there. Where to look at? Where to go to? What kind of tools what kind of instruments to put to work to establish open innovation? You might think of two different routes here as well. You might imagine that you turn to the legislator and that you rely on the legislator to establish open innovation, or that you rely on the legislature to change the legal framework, for example, to ditch IP, or to carve out gene patents, or to abolish plant patents. Maybe that's a way to go. But I believe there's a second way to go, where you do not especially rely on the legislature changing and modifying the current IP framework. But I firmly believe there is a second path where not the legislature, but the actors, the stakeholders, we, the people, are able to mold, to tailor IP, to use IP in a way which makes it more lenient for open innovation. So saying it in a different way, we do not necessarily have to take refuge to the legislature to change the legal framework, to change something in the coming into existence of patents. We might also turn to actors and stakeholders to change the use or the exercise of IP which is out there. And rather than thinking of bilateral initiatives between two users, between two companies, we should think big here. We should think of platforms where users and companies can meet. So platforms which are collaborative in nature. What happens on those platforms? Well, if I listen to Shafali, the platforms may well be helpful in exchanging information. But if I listen to Michael, the platforms may be helpful in exchanging technologies and IP. The research I've been doing so far has been looking into those collaborative models, collaborative licensing models. And what I've been experiencing so far is that they work pretty well in a non-for-profit context, so for humanitarian purposes. But what I'm intrigued about and why I'm so fascinated by this e-licensing platform, which has been setting up by Syngenta, I would want to see to what extent those new IP modulations, those new IP uses, those collaborative platforms, to what extent they can operate in a for-profit context, to what extent it becomes an interesting business model for companies and not only for, as I said, humanitarian purposes. I would like to wrap up, and I'm not going to refer to Darwin, neither am I going to refer to Kirk. I would like to close with a biblical sentence saying that the big challenge is to turn patent swords into shares. And I hope to live the day that that will really take place, and I really tremendously look forward and hope both the e-licensing platform from Syngenta and the industry platform will turn out and will prove to be valuable tools to really reach open innovation. Thank you.